afternoon, wherever you are. Happy New Year to all of our friends, customers, and partners, and welcome to the January webinar. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I am Kim Rayfelt, Director of Media Relations, and I'm your host. So our webinars are designed to keep you up to date on what is new with our Symmetry Security Management System and our services, provide an overview of Symmetry's unique benefits, and help you differentiate your company when you team up with us. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please type them into the Q&A box and we will address as many as we can at the end of the webinar. And we will definitely follow up with those that we didn't get to after the webinar. So today we welcome back Global Vice President of Sales, John Becker, and Manager of Application Engineering, Greg McDermott. So Symmetry CompleteView Video Management System 7.1.1 has been released, and Greg and John are going to be highlighting the features and benefits this new version offers. And as always, I'll wrap it up with a brief marketing update at the end. AMAG technology offers a robust, unified, and open security platform that empowers businesses to effectively secure their facilities, meet compliance, and have peace of mind. While access control is the foundation of what we do, the Symmetry Security Management System includes video management, which is what we're highlighting today, identity management, analytics, mobile, visitor management, and intrusion. Symmetry's scalable security solutions provide operational insights and intelligence to improve business today and tomorrow. Our solutions also help our reseller channel and end users solve security and compliance challenges. The Symmetry Security Management System and our ecosystem of best-of-breed technology partners work together to provide a complete solution for you. So all of our webinars, and a lot more, quite frankly, are available on our YouTube channel, which I invite you to subscribe to. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Manager of Applications Engineering, Greg McDermott, who will kick us off, along with Global Vice President of Sales, John Becker.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Kim. Next slide, please. So before we begin discussing the feature enhancements of the new version 7.1.1 release of CompleteView, I'd like to take a little bit of time to make sure everyone is familiar with the product, so they understand the core product before we go into the new enhancements that are released with the new release. Symmetry CompleteView is a video management platform that scales from entry level all the way through enterprise level via VMS needs. So there's a lot of markets and a lot of flexibility with the product. It's very easy to use and plugs directly into the Symmetry suite of products. So it has a full integration and data sharing between, for example, Symmetry Access Control and Symmetry CompleteView. It's also open architecture. It supports most common industry standards like ONVIF, RTSP streaming. So there's a broad range of cameras that we can work with this, both with defined integrations and then using many of these protocols. CompleteView also has a feature called dynamic resolution scaling. What this is it's a feature that allows us to automatically calculate the resolution of, for example, a tile on your screen. So if I'm, for example, taking a high resolution camera, but I'm putting it on a monitor on a smaller tile that has a much smaller resolution, rather than sending that full stream, it'll automatically calculate the size of the tile and then condense the video to fit there. And it's automated and takes no configuration. So it's very simple to use and saves a lot of bandwidth. Next slide, please. So from a pre-sale standpoint and quoting, it's very easy to design and use. So CompleteView has available a design tool wizard. What this does is it lets us specify how many cameras do I have, what's the resolution and retention and frame rate that I'm using for these, and then very easily produce the server size that we need in order to support this. So very easy to design the NVR size. It'll even specify the power protect servers from our from our line of servers for us to provide, but also you can use those same specs in order to provide your own if you don't want to use the servers that we provide. It also has a very simple pricing model. Licensing is almost entirely based on number of cameras. So we have, for example, our professional level and then our enterprise level, which has a few enhanced features. So once you know which level you have, designing your licensing is really how many cameras do I have? Multiply that by the part for whatever level you're on. So rather than having a complex list of every feature, different, add-on modules, rather than needing to worry about that, you just need to know, well, how many cameras do I have? So again, very easy to price. There are a number of options for things such as your clients. So we have web clients, mobile clients, thick clients. It's not licensed. So whichever version you have, as many clients as you need, it will support. Symmetry CompleteView Enterprise supports Active Directory integration as well. So it has that to simplify logging in. Next slide. So going into the new version 7.1.1 release, this is the first version 7 under the AMAG Symmetry branding. Therefore, it incorporates a few additional updates, not just 7.1.1, but releases from 7.0 and 7.1.0. The primary things that are new in this release are storage pools, which is something that brings additional features such as per camera retention policies, predictive storage analytics, and a lot of additional features that are a pretty major enhancement. It also has a unified authentication for Active Directory versus local sign-on. And it also incorporates a new management server that's a lot more robust and scalable and does some pretty major improvements in terms of stability and performance. Next slide, please. So taking a closer look at the storage pools option that's added, what a storage pool is a scalable and logical collection of physical hard drives that provide a greater flexibility for video storage. So this provides, among other things, the ability to have shareable and reliable storage protection. So I can have storage on one of my recording servers that's also shared with other recording servers. Any location to which a recording server has access may be added to the storage pool, and individual folders on any given drive may be specified as part of that pool. This gives the ability to implement synchronous backup and overflow protection. So a lot of advantages there. When cameras are recording to a storage pool, it also allows for camera-specific recording. Retention policies on one camera can be different from another camera. That's another additional enhancement we get there. Additional storage utilization data is made available, which helps us provide forecasting information. So we can predict, do we have enough storage for these cameras going? Do we need to address things like that? Next slide, please. So taking a bit of a closer look at the storage pool configuration, we can see here at the top of the screen where we are able to go specify what is the drive path of the pool. So where on my local computer is this storing? We can select to make a pool for overflow. So this is a option that lets us say, let's say I've got multiple recording servers, and on one of my servers, for various reasons, we have a higher amount of disk utilization than expected. So one of the reasons that you may run into this is because, for example, compression policies are taking into consideration the type and amount of emotion that's going on. This is even if you're recording continuously. So let's say, for example, you have a lot of unexpected video motion on the system, creating more storage on one server. Well, if that storage requirement goes above the minimum retention and it seems we're not going to make it there, the overflow storage can be used to still make that minimum by storing it on a separate server. So we're now protected to make sure we can get the actual expected storage that we are looking for. Symmetry CompleteView also sends notifications of when the overflow starts and stops. So it's something that you'll be able to manage and properly make sure is working. We can also go and configure the video space. So we can see the total free disk space available. And then we have color-coded disk utilization. So things like the gray area tells us that that's free space. We have, blue indicates cameras with a minimum recording. Purple is for cameras without minimum requirements, and orange is for other applications. So if this drive is used for things other than just CompleteView, that's managed there. Now here at the bottom, we can see what we're currently looking at is the screen for the retention policy. So we can go in there and set the minimum and maximum settings for each camera. So we can make sure that this is, this is how much data we need for one particular camera. Maybe some of your cameras you need to store for 90 days, others maybe you're only storing for 30 days. We can go camera by camera and set what those minimum and maximum settings are. And then from there, if we select the retention estimates button, which is there in the middle, that's the middle button that we have there. Next slide to take us to that. So on this screen here, we're seeing the retention estimates, it provides retention data such as what is the write rate, so how much storage per day each camera has written. We're displaying with statistics over the last week, as well as over the last day, so we can see if, like, for example, maybe over the last day we're recording at a much higher rate than we had previous weeks. We can see that. We also see the rate status, which indicates if the rate of recording is within current norms. So let's say something were to happen to create a lot more motion, or for a number of other reasons, if we're going outside those norms, we can see that. Estimated 7-day storage and estimated 1-day storage based on historical writing data is also there. So we can say typically over the history of this camera, we've been recording at whatever rate. Well, now we can see, well, what is the estimated amount of storage we can expect with that. Next slide, please. This is if we select the storage utilization, we get a visual representation of the utilization on that drive. So this is a much, or across the system. So we here, using the same color coding as before, we can see how much free space, cameras recording with minimum, cameras without minimum, as well as other applications, and as well as the red indicates a safety buffer. Next slide, please. So one of the things I'd mentioned is also how we have improved performance. So here we're seeing data in terms that shows the essentially a chart that shows the performance improvements of CompleteView version 7 compared to previous versions of CompleteView, specifically version 5, as well as competitors. As you can see from here, we are up to about, let's say, approaching about 500 cameras. The performance of version 7 is steady, relatively close to performance of previous versions and our competitors. But as we scale to much larger systems, that's where we see that the response time starts to drastically grow on older systems and some of our competitors, whereas version 7 still stays relatively stable. It doesn't have that exponential growth in terms of the amount of time. So scaling to systems that are 5,000, 10,000, very large cameras, we see that we still have, not as much of a massive spike in the amount of response time compared to other products. And so it still remains relatively low and performs really well even under these large systems.
Greg, I think it's important to note that a lot of these directly from the voice of customer, from both our partners, our authorized resellers and dealers, the integrators, as well as from their end users. So we appreciate that feedback, and it certainly goes into our product planning and development.
Yep. Next slide, please. And finally, we have some enhanced password management. So administrators can now manage the password expiration and require complex passwords globally across their system. So this allows additional control over the passwords used by the system. And as I mentioned earlier, we also have a unification in the logon screen of Active Directory and local passwords. So that's not shown here, but in previous versions, if I were to use a system that had Active Directory single sign-on, as well as a mixture of local passwords, when you would log on, you would have to select, well, what is the authentication mechanism? So am I logging on with my Windows user credentials, or am I logging on with credentials that are created within CompleteView? Now in version 7, that's been unified, so I don't need to specifically say what is the authentication. I just log in and it will select and it will choose appropriately to log me in if I have proper credentials. So with that, that's the summary of the major enhancements with version 7.1.1. So with that, I will hand it back off to Kim.
And Kim, we've got a couple questions. Maybe you can ask them so that Greg can answer a couple of them from the Q&A.
Sure. Let's see here. So are there any limitations on how many cameras can be added to a pool?
There are no limitations by number per se, but from a design standpoint, we do want to make sure that we don't exceed like storage requirements. So, so we would generally follow the same requirements of the design tool wizard to decide to size the system.
Yeah, and I think most of the people on this call know that if you have a customer who wants 60 images per second on every camera on their system, that's obviously going to drain your storage a lot quicker than if they were doing more realistic 12 to 20, 25 images per second. So there are other factors than just number of cameras. It also matters what kind of resolution you're looking for, as well as images per second, everything else that goes along with that.
Yeah, and also particularly with hard drive speeds, you have a certain amount of write speed depending on hardware technology and things like that. So there's a lot of factors that go into how fast can I write this data. So where there may not be a hard limit, there is some practical limits of not wanting to put in more cameras than the hard drives can physically write to, or you don't want to sacrifice too much quality or have really low frame rates in order to add more cameras.
And we see what they do in those situations. Typically it's gaming, or it's cache rooms where they're counting cache, or it's retail when they're looking for loss prevention. They're looking for that sleight of hand. So they tend to want larger images per second, but that's fixed just by making sure you have the right hardware platform, the right storage, and that things are distributed correctly. But for the day-to-day, for most video systems, we're absolutely able to manage the number of cameras that way.
Have any improvements been made to using the smart search feature as far as time that it takes to search video?
I'm not sure specifically, I mean, if anything was made with that. I do know that smart search in general can take a lot of time because we have to do the calculations of essentially looking for the video motion detection, particularly with if the video is compressed with H.264 or H.265 compression, where the individual, and this is typical of most cameras nowadays, where you're not storing every single frame. So I do know in general it can take long, not just with CompleteView, but in in premise. But I don't know specifically, but I can look into that.
Okay. Is there a cloud storage option?
So we don't sell specifically a cloud storage option for it, but from the standpoint of can it be used to cloud storage? Absolutely. So the storage pools can be any drive that's accessible by the recording servers. So this can be a NAS, it can be iSCSI. It can also be, for example, a cloud storage as long as the server has access to that storage.
Okay. Let's see. Will we be able to leverage camera onboard analytics in this version of CompleteView?
Yeah, so the specific analytics depends on the cameras. So we do have supported cameras on our hardware on our supported hardware list. So I know some analytics, for example, from Axis have worked even on previous versions. I haven't looked at that list to see in terms of new cameras which ones have analytics, but it is something that even with previous versions, camera dependent, we did have some analytics support.
So analytics support is definitely part of this version. It's a matter of whether or not, we've worked with that manufacturer to get the API and make sure everything's integrated together. But as Greg said, they're constantly updating that hardware list. So if you look at the cameras that are authorized for that, if they, it should work.
Okay, let's see. This might be a question for John or something we can get back to. What are the upgrade costs if a user wants the newer features?
Yeah, I would say, talk to your sales folks. They'll be able to get you a quote on that for an upgrade standpoint.
Yeah, I would add that if you have a current SMA, then there's no as long as you're kind of keeping up with that, there's no specific cost to upgrade as long as the SMA is there. So it becomes more of a question of are you keeping up with your support plan?
Yeah, and for the end users who are listening in, as well as our integrator partners, it shows the power of the SMA, right? There's a reason that you want that SMA. It's not just a standard requirement or something that you pay out to. You get free upgrades, you get updates on the product. So there are features and functionality that come with those SMAs at no cost. So if you don't have an SMA today, talk to your authorized dealer who sold you the product, or if you're an integrator, talk to one of our sales folks who'll be able to explain that a little bit more.
Okay, and we will do one more question. Will this version install cleanly over a version 6 without any other setup?
Generally, yes. I don't know of any specific reasons why it wouldn't. I know that when I upgraded my version 6 to version 7, it was just install over top. The manual does provide also upgrade instructions. So I don't recall if there are any special cases that would have required any sort of changes. So, but generally, it's just the install on top.
Okay, thank you, Greg. So thank you, Greg and John, for your great overview. And if you guys want more information about CompleteView, I invite you to please visit our website or reach out to your local regional sales manager. So in this month's marketing update, I wanted to share our events calendar and invite you to visit us if you'll be attending any of these shows. So this week, right now, our international team is exhibiting at Intersec in Dubai. And from what I understand, that's going very well. In March, you'll find us back at ISC West in Las Vegas. And then in April, we're going to be exhibiting at a new show for us. It's called the Security Event in Birmingham. So we're excited to be there. We look forward to exhibiting at this brand new show. And then in May, we'll be back at PSA Tech, which will be held in Dallas, Texas. And lastly, you can visit us at GSX, also held in Dallas, Texas, September 11th through the 13th. Watch the Symmetry Scoop newsletter for more details or check out our events page on amag.com. So thank you, Greg and John, for presenting on today's webinar, and thank you to Jamie, who is driving the bus and working the magic behind the scenes. If you have any more questions about Symmetry, please reach out to your local AMAG salesperson and we can set up a meeting with you. Today's questions were great. Love to see all the interaction. As always, the full webinar and previous webinars will be posted on our YouTube channel. That usually takes about a day or two. As soon as we end this webinar, a short survey will pop up in your browser. Please take a moment to fill that out so we can make sure that we're delivering the best information possible to you guys. So thanks for joining us today. We hope that you have a wonderful holiday season, and we hope you'll join us for next month's webinar, which is on Tuesday, February 21st. Watch your inbox for details. Thanks again.